ESPN Radio's NFL Two-A-Days.
I think realistically, if Fields can not let the burden of winning games affect him this year and try to grow in spite of what could be a very rough year for the Chicago Bears, they'll be set up to actually get to see what he's capable of. But I think this year,
he does not believe Carson Wentz has he believes Carson Wentz has the least amount of pressure on him in the NFC East when you compare him to the other quarterbacks.
Am I wrong?
No. The way you explain it, I guess I kind of understand it. I think for him there's some internal pressure. At least there should be. But then other people will tell you that he doesn't. He just doesn't work that way. You know, we've got to figure out what, like, as a teammate, why things have gone wrong, and why two teams now have said we're better off without you. That's all. With all the talent he has.
When you don't win, the noise gets loud, and when the noise gets loud, people's opinions change of you. And people fall into the opinions. They let the opinions sway their decision-making far too often in professional sports. They just do. I mean, people don't like to hear that. They just don't. They can't process it.
When you say opinion, where's that opinion coming from?
It can come from many different places. It could be a variation of a number of things. But what happens is, in my opinion, having played and been around it and kind of watch it and check it out a lot, when people start screaming loud about who you are, everybody else buys into it. And they don't really break it down and really look at it. They get spooked. And because, again, when you look at the Eagles, it didn't go well. The coach got fired, who won the damn Super Bowl.
Yep.
So, naturally, the Eagles said, we're going to just get rid of everybody. So then you look at that, and first thing people say is, well, he was part of the problem, he was part of the problem, he was part of the problem, he was part of the problem. They didn't really like him in the locker room. Then he goes to Indianapolis, and he's there 1 year. He makes a few bonehead plays. Now the guy can't play football anymore.
You talk about spooked. In Jacksonville, he looked spooked. Like he looks crazy, spooked, man. And if you're a teammate and you're looking at a guy, I mean, how important is that, Key? When you're in the huddle, you're looking at, and I know, obviously, maybe you're different because your confidence level is a lot different than most people. But isn't it important to have someone in the huddle that has command that you trust?
Oh,
and you can see it in the guy's eyes, like, oh, he's not here.
Absolutely. I can go back to the story from high school, right? Our backup quarterback had to come in. He was a young kid, though. You know, he was young. He was a sophomore at the time. And he comes in. We're a really good team. Like, we are, like, the best of the best, right? He comes in the huddle, and the first thing I told him, I said, you bet not da-da-da-da-da. Guess what he did? He did exactly what I told him not to do. He fumbled the damn snap. And so you can look at him in the huddle and tell he getting ready to poop his pants.
Yep.
Right? Like, you could just totally tell. I played with the Jets, and I played with Rick Meyer, and I bless Rick Meyer. I like Rick and everything. But I look at Rick's eyes, and I can tell, like, this ain't really what he want to do right now. Versus Vinny Testaverde and Brad Johnson, those guys in the huddle, you could tell that they was ready to go. Rick was more like, it just was something about him.
He was trying to get through it.
Didn't make you feel like we was getting ready to do anything.
I can imagine. Well, that's what they said about Carson Wentz in Philly.
I understand.
That's what they said about him there. And then you see him in Jacksonville. If you're Indianapolis, you're like, no, we can't keep going forward with this guy. So we'll see. Now we gotta move on from this. But it's just we'll see if in Washington maybe that changes. But that only changes if that look in his eye, like you said, changes. But meanwhile, how about a young quarterback, a 23-year-old in Justin Fields with Chicago, and where he is this year, where now it's a new head coach. It's very similar to, we see this a lot. New head coach now, Matt Eberflus. A new offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy. For the first time, he's an offensive coordinator after spending a couple of years with Aaron Rodgers. So he's calling the plays. And it's not like they made some major changes to their roster where they gave him a ton of weapons. Like, it's him, it's Dave Montgomery, and, a bunch of other guys. Like, what do you expect, or what should we expect out of Justin Fields this coming season?
Nothing except growth, ability to continue to get better in the pocket. That's pretty much it. When you look at some of the players that they let go, when you say didn't make changes, well, they made some changes. Allen Robinson is now out here in Los Angeles. Khalil Mack is in L.A. I mean, you start to look at some of the players on the team, they made some changes. They didn't necessarily bring in anything that made you say, wow, Equanimeous St. Brown is a kid from Green Bay that was their fourth receiver. You know, Brian Pringle. I mean, they just didn't really upgrade at any positions because they're not expected to go anywhere. 2023 is the year for them. They'll have more cap space. They'll be able to be big-time players in free agency, and that's okay. He just got to stay healthy, and he's got to just continue to grow at the position, learn the position and continue to grow at it. He's going to make a lot of major mistakes, and if his athletic ability can take over and he can energize the team from that standpoint, then I think everybody will be, oh, my God, he's a second coming. We haven't seen this before. But if he struggles, you're going to hear people say, oh, well, you know, he may not be the answer. Should the Bears be looking for another quarterback, which is unfair. But you're going to hear that because they're not looking at the long-term situation. They're worried about the short-term and the immediate right now, which is nothing, which isn't going to be good.
No, and that's the biggest part of this problem, right? Because what you just said is the danger zone when you have a young quarterback is if team success doesn't happen, that's when you start asking that question. Well, it's going to be a big quarterback draft. They might have another high draft pick. Should they go for a quarterback? What should they do? And it's unfair to him as a young quarterback. You have to give him time. And with a new coaching staff, that's not their guy. They didn't draft him. They didn't, that's not the plan.
Well,
so what happens?
In this situation, though, it's almost like they did draft him. He's in the same similar situation as Jalen Hurts was a year ago. Same situation that the New York Jets were with Zach Wilson a year ago. A very bad football team that all of a sudden gets a new head coach. So it's like them drafting him. He's not in his fourth year. He's in his first year. He's in his second year, which is really his first year because his first year was really a trial period to learn how to get to the locker room on time because of the coaches were going to be fired. This is not one of those situations. So I think when you look at it, the Bears and Eberflus, the head coach, took this job, and there's only 32 teams, in the National Football League. Most coaches will take a job no matter what, but you took this job knowing that this is your quarterback for the next, 3 to 4 years, and it's your job as a head coach to get him going in the right direction because it'll fall on you if he shows flashes, and those flashes show some greatness, but you can't get that greatness to get over the hill, then eventually people are going to start to say, well, it's the coaching, it's not the player.